like, let's talk about you now, but more importantly, let's talk about the journey of self-discovery, you know what I mean? Like, when you started, let's talk about this idea of who Gavin Rubinstein is today.
Yeah.
How did that sort of begin? Who did you want to be? Who did you aspire to be? And how did you start creating this idea of who Gavin Rubinstein has become?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a complex question, right? Like, how much time do you have and how deep do I go on that, right?
Let's start about the start. Let's start about who you thought you were.
Yeah. There was no one I tried to emulate. There was no one that I try to want to be like. There were people at the early stages of my career who inspired me. There were people who still inspire me today. There were people who were mentors to me, so motivated me, and people I went to when I kind of needed help or assistance on the journey. But there was no one kind of real estate model or business person that I wanted to model my business on to say, I want to be just like them. I think if anything, I looked at the industry, even as a young real estate agent with no experience, as to who, you know, the array of top performers were. So like, who were the guys who were at the top? What did they do to be successful? And I just thought I saw opportunity. As like a 20-year-old kid, I thought my mindset around it was always, well, if these guys are at the top, shit, there ain't no way I'm not going to get there if I, you know, design a plan and, you know, work towards a strategy which kind of puts me there and even further. And you know, I don't say that in an arrogant way. I don't mean that in any way, shape or form. I just mean, you know, I remember analyzing and studying the top performing agents when I had started out and thinking, this is going to be a breeze. You know what I mean? It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be simple. And I think it's an interesting choice of words when you really break it down, because that's what it has been to this point. It's one of those industries that is not hard to stand out in. You know, if you create a plan, if your actions map towards your ambitions every single day, if you're consistent with it. The problem is in real estate, as you know, most agents are consistent with being inconsistent.
Yes.
So there aren't a lot of people who can do it. I just made a decision to be consistent, and since day one up until today have been consistent around it. And I think that's it.
100%. And, you know, in everyone that I've met that's sort of in this sort of upper echelon, it is so important that you don't have to be loved by everyone, liked by everyone. It doesn't have to be one way, but you just need to identify what it is that makes you you.
Correct.
And then be consistent there, and you'll find your tribe, right?
100%. I mean, look, everyone's got a different style and which way they run their business and carry themselves. And, you know, you talk about discovering who I am as an individual, and that's constantly ongoing, and I think never ending, right? But what I have discovered, particularly over the last, say, 3 to 5 years, and identified is I have a comprehensive understanding of this process that very few people do. And so I'm able to identify the value I can add to a prospective vendor looking to sell their property. Above all else, I'm unapologetically me. So you love it or you hate it. In this space, I can add a shit ton of value to you. And if you want to engage me or TRG for that matter for our services, let's work. Being a friend, building relationships is great. I love to do that too. But I accept I'm not going to be friends and be liked by everybody. And, you know, when I talk about different agents and how they run their business and their practice, there are certain agents who, you know, just want everyone to like them. There are certain agents who act fake and try to create a sense of connection or rapport in order to get the listing. And that's just not me. And it's never going to be me. You know, I always want to create a sense of, if you want the best result, call TRG. You know, and anything else that comes from that is a bonus, right? I'm never going to be fake to anyone. I don't like anything that's fake. I'm not, my brand, if you like, and me and my identity as a person is wholeheartedly authentic, like you say. You know what I mean?
And an interesting thing I would love to think about, or even whether this happened or not, or a good friend of yours, Marty Fox, I sat down with him a couple of years ago and talked about the development of his brand, which is obviously very bespoke and very him and very authentic.
Yeah.
And I remember he talks about it was almost a blessing that he had to take sort of, you know, 6 to 12 months out of the game because he had a restraint to trade put on him, and he took the time to sit down and just write down who does he want to be?
Yeah.
And then he even went down to, actually, labeling and trademarking his phrases. But, did you ever sit down and actually think, like, what do I want to represent to this world? Or is this just something that you just think has started to become organic?
I think it's become organic as time has kind of progressed. And I think in the earlier days, it was very much Gavin Rubinstein centric and Gavin Rubinstein focused. And over the last couple of years, that's evolved into TRG and is becoming more and more emphasis on TRG and the Rubinstein Group as a whole. Where that goes to from here, stay tuned, watch real close, because it's going to be exciting, right? But I think it's just organically evolved as I've propelled through my career, and I've always just been focused on the things that drive my energy and propel my energy in a positive manner, and really made a conscious choice of removing anything that slows me down or drives my energy in a negative way. And through that feel out process, if you like, it's got to where it's at today.
So to this end, I do want to talk about the development of your brand that's actually helping others, because I think that's a very important part of this conversation. But coming back to, again, the beginning of the journey, I see a lot of people, they look at someone like yourself and many others that have developed this brand name around who they are, what they represent, and they believe that that's kind of what it takes. And if I'm talking about myself, I don't know many people that live in Wallara that aren't real estate agents. So let's just pretend I sat down here, I went and got some, DL flyers, I got some billboards, I upgraded my suits, and I pretended to do the Gavin Rubinstein brand or, Team TSG, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Would that make me successful?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Because that's not authentic to who you are. And so what works for me is my brand and who I am as a person has always been authentic to who I am and focused on what, like I say, positively drives my energy. And so what positively drives my energy is not going to positively drive the next person's energy.
Exactly.
No one's going to build with passion my brand the way I built my brand, because I've focused on the things that I'm passionate about. And I think you're right. Like a lot of these young cats who come into the industry, have this misconception that they'll have a look at what, say, I've done, try to emulate it overnight, put up a pretty picture on Instagram and expect their business to be able to produce multi-millions of dollars in gross commission earnings overnight. And that's just not the case, right? They've got to find out what works for them, what they like and what they're passionate about, and build it from that perspective. Since day one, like I've just been making passion my paycheck. It's a phrase that I love, and it's true, because like if you ask anyone who knows me intimately, who works with me in and around the business, they'll tell you, like, if I don't like doing something or it's gonna negatively drive my energy, I'm just not gonna fucking do it, because it ends up costing me more money than it would have in the first place, And so that, people just need to understand, like, how can we find something that is gonna excite us? What are our core values that we want to build our brand off of? Who can I look at to derive inspiration from? Like that's what I did. I didn't emulate anyone specifically, but I identified there's this guy over here in real estate that I like. There's this guy here in sports that I like. There's this guy here who's an entrepreneur who I like. There's this motivational, inspirational speaker over here that, I just kind of picked from an array of people across, a large scope of professions and said, you inspire me for whatever reason. I'm going to draw this from each of you, put my own twist on it, and,
It's like you've got a board of directors that you look at and you just sort of take inspiration from.
Correct.
So, let's talk about brand as part of the greater infrastructure of the business, right? Brand is relevant. Sure. It's important. Ray White is a brand.
Sure.
But it doesn't come without the work first. So if I'm a brand new agent, let's come back to that example there. Where does that fit in the level of priorities of getting started? This idea of, okay, well, Gavin said I need an identity and a brand versus actually getting some results first.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've got to have an idea of what it looks like. Like, you've got to be an architect of your world. And I believe in that. Like, I come in touch with a lot of people, particularly lately, and they're like, did you expect the business to be where it's at today? And I'm like, fucking oath I did. I've been the architect of this motherfucker since the beginning. And now we're coming up on 14 years, 15 years, and I've given it everything over such a long period of time. So I think initially you've got to be able to design what your world, what your future, where your career can take you. But I think in terms of priorities, you've got to focus on the cause. You've got to focus on the work. You've got to focus on getting results. You've got to focus on whoever you're supporting or working for, making sure that they know how serious you take what you're doing and how serious you take your future in this industry. But at the same time, once you start to get runs on the boards, if you have a bit of an idea of what your brand will look like, it will start to really leave a blueprint as the results come in. But I wouldn't make it top priority. I say when you start out, top priority needs to be runs on the board.
Yep.
It needs to be calls. It needs to be, if you're supporting an agent, being the top associate to that agent. And then as it unfolds, it will fit into what your brand is, sure.
I mean, a question we talked about in a previous interview, but maybe they didn't see it, was sort of this idea, some of the projects that you're a part of, obviously very heavy about developing your brand exposure, and does it actually sell real estate? Well, maybe not, but it obviously helps build your profile.
Sure.
And the question I asked was, how is this not a distraction?
Yeah.
I'll ask you the same question again, because I think your answer was very poignant. So
Yeah.
how is, the shows and the
Sure.
podcasts, how is that not a distraction for you, or how do you make it not a distraction for you?
It comes down to what your priorities are. I mean, when I, again, going back to started in the industry began, I analysed a lot of these top performers, right? And I wanted to know, because I'm not the smartest chap in the room, but I'm a really good learner. And I wanted to know and understand what it was that made them great, what made these guys the top of the tree. And whilst I kind of uncovered and identified that every one of them were different, right, in terms of style, in terms of look, in terms of age, in terms of demographic, and so many factors, there were a couple of common denominators. The first one, of course, was hard damn work. Right, it's just something you can't escape in this industry. This industry will expose you if you don't work hard. So, no one in this industry is able to make to the top without hard, consistent work. And the second point was this thing called profile. Now, profile is another interpretation of brand, I would say.
I agree.
Right. And how do you build profile? Because if all of these guys are different, but there's one or two characteristics that unify them, how can I build this thing called profile? And I started to research into that, and I learned, a great way to build profile was listings. A great way to build profile was signboards in your marketplace. Great way to build profile were ads on the internet. Great way to build profile were ads in the courier. Great way to build profile were mentions in the news. Great way to build profile was through social media. Great way to build profile was more people knowing your name. All of these facets. And that was the time and point, which was early on, that I actually said to myself, I made a deal with myself around profile, and it always being a top priority, because it is essential, clearly because of the guys who are at the top, that in order to play at that level, you needed a high level of profile.
Totally.
And I've just never gone back on that deal with myself, and so no matter what, so long as it positively builds my profile in a good way, I'm going to set up the structures I need to in order to continue to do that. And things like the shows you talk about being distracting, things like podcasts you talk about, they are distracting, but it's a priority for me in order to do them, because I know that builds my profile, which I know really positively affects my real estate business. And the best way to manage that and the distractions is simple. Number one, you need a high octane, extremely conscientious, supporting team and network in and around you, from your EA to your ops manager to your driver to your financial controller to your junior agents, to it does not stop. Anyone who's going to help you needs to be extremely capable and aware of your business, because they give you capacity. And then the second point is just make sure it's in line with your brand and your identity in terms of, I guess the brand that you want to build. And if you manage it effectively, and you think guys like freaking Kevin Hart doing what he does is able to. It's the understanding of how important the profile thing is in order for his next gig, and it's also having a phenomenal team in and around him to make sure that he's got the capacity to do it, at a high level.
The best thing I take from all that starts with all of your marketing and brand started with results-based marketing. 100%. It's listings, it's sales,
100%.
It's signboards, it's results.
100%.
Without that first, the photos, the videos, the persona is irrelevant. Yeah, the comment you made when we last talked about it is that without the results, then you're a fraud on national television. You don't want that.
100%. It's and you hear these guys talk about it all the time. We touched on this in our last discussion. I love NBA basketball,
Yeah.
which I know is kind of ironic, but I'm fucking obsessed with it, right? And
You always love what you can't do.
yeah, 100%, unfortunately. And I love the competitive nature of these guys, and I love the athleticism of them. So I love to watch the game. But what I love even more so, and it's the same with the UFC, I love to watch the matches and I love to watch them brawl. I love actually to watch the post-game or post-fight interviews. I prefer that than, or just as much as the actual event itself, because it gives you a chance to get an insight into the mindset of these champions. Mm-hmm. It's like going back to what I said earlier, success leaves clues, and I never watch anyone or go through any process without the mindset of what can I learn from this in order to become better in my own small world of real estate. And that's it's just a major part of it, right?
So let's expand here, and I love this even more so because you're now a couple of years into being a principal, you've now got a team, you've developed some of the best agents in the network, which is a great question I'm going to come back to, but down to the perspective, right? The hairy shirt question is this idea that no one's bigger than the brand, no one's bigger than the team TRG when it comes to the context of this office. No one's bigger than Ray White when it comes to Ray White being part of the brand. This idea that you've got to have this collective of Ray White, team TRG, then the individual, sort of that order there. So the hairy shirt question is, why stay with Ray White when you've got so much personal brand as well? What's the value that you get from being part of the network?
It's a great question. And, people have asked me it since we opened up. Honest answer is I've got a very, very good relationship with the White family. It's a formula that has worked over, quite a decent period of time. And I really appreciate that relationship. And I think it's a formula that works. Now, over time, that will evolve for sure. And it's actually going through the motions of evolving right now. But from where I see it, I think I'll always be, indirect partners with the White family, because it just makes for good business, and I like good business. And when you have a mutually beneficial agreement, there's no reason to change it.
And you take a look, we're talking about some other guys like, Josh Teslin's just kind of joined, great young guys, and they can leverage and brand and use the brand, to the value of others looking to be part of the brand. Where do you sort of see that as someone wanting to build their own profile within the greater brand, especially when you're talking about other young high performers like that?
Yeah, the answer to that would be also part of the reason why I still see value in it, which is the competitive side of it, and it depends on who you are as an individual, but from my understanding of a lot of the top performing agents, quality is being very, very competitive, and you just have to ask yourself, do you want to compete on a big stage under the bright lights for Australia's largest real estate brand? Or do you want to build your own little gig and compete with 20 or 30 or 40, 50 people if you're lucky after a period of time? I know what I'd rather be doing, because I like the pressure, I like the heat, and I like that. I like that big stage, and I like those bright lights. And so that, outside of having the great relationship with the White family, is the reason why I'm going to always see myself in partnership with the family.
So let's talk about now the development of the agents that you've already got, and I'm going to sort of dovetail this into recruitment later on, because I know that a lot of the profile work you do, one of the questions I asked from the very first interview we did was, is this for you? Is this for listings? And then you actually told me, no, this is to recruit people, brother. And I opened my eyes to it, right? So I'm going to come back to that. But in the same sort of context of people being able to build their brand within your brand, you've now got Ollie Labors, Chairman Elite, one of the best in the business. You've got the people like Kai's just hit Elite today, I believe, and these guys that you're being able to develop within this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how do you build a brand first to actually grow other people within your brand and actually make them more successful from being here than saying, starting Oliver Labors real estate.
Yeah. I think it's something that is constantly a learning process for any business owner. I don't care if they've been in business ownership for like 30 years or they've been in business ownership for 3 years. It really does come down to the individual. And I actually learned, and this may ruffle some feathers, but it's the truth, so I'm going to say it. I actually learned through the process of being an agent for a firm when the business owner was supposed to be a leader, what not to do with high-performing agents. And again, going back to success leaving clues, right? Success can leave good clues, but even when it's in a bad or negative situation, there's also a lot to be learned from it. And so what I try to do is just everything I can in terms of adding value for, I guess, you know, the fee, if you like, that each agent pays off of each sale that they make. I've had that hat on. You know, I've been in those shoes. I've been in a position whereby I've had to give half of my fee away to the office and have been open to doing so only on the basis of ensuring I was getting value reciprocated. It's like this thing I talk about, mutually beneficial. You want to be in a business deal, it can't just be beneficial for one party. And so with my agents, I always like to come from a position of ensuring at all times it's a mutually beneficial agreement. And that's not always just monetary. You know, there's a lot of ways in which that can be, you know, banked at. And ultimately, I think you need to be focused on providing as much value as you can, giving as much as you can to a point, and ultimately accepting that if someone decides that they want to leave and start, say, an Ollie Laver's real estate, you've got to wish them the best to do so, but be in a position to know you did everything you possibly could to help and support at that time when, you know, you were in partnership. So, look, it hasn't happened to me yet. You know, I haven't had a top performing agent that I've, you know, you mentioned Ollie, you mentioned Kai, Evan's doing great too, Pat's doing great, Zach, who we just recruited, are doing fantastic. Obviously Ollie and Kai a little bit more sentimental to me because they came up through in my team, but I actually haven't gone through, you know, the process of one of them turning around to me and saying, hey, look, we're going to go elsewhere. I'm sure it's bound to happen. Having said that, and I always talk about this too, in my previous office, if we had a mutually beneficial agreement, and this may shock some people, I'd probably still be there today.
Yeah, funny.
Like it's crazy. Like salespeople, generally speaking about salespeople, they don't want to take on this responsibility. And if anything, and like I give, since being in business ownership for 2 years, business owners so much more respect now than I did before, because you learn what's involved in it, and there is so much more involved in it. But having said that, most salespeople just want to fucking list and sell. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't really have an ambition to open up an office, you know, start to potentially now build a corporation. You know, that was never on the agenda. Seeing as it's here, I'm going to explore it.
I'm going to do it.
You know what I'm saying? But it never was the intention for me. So I think if that deal was good, you know, and I was treated fair and equitably on the basis of the value I added, I'll probably still be there today. So
I love this. This idea opens this sort of Pandora's box of treating your salespeople like partners is the right word. I like that. So let's talk practically, right?
Yeah.
Like, these guys are legitimate high performers. You know that they're getting calls from other agencies.
Sure.
You know they're getting calls from you know, guys getting financial offers, all kinds of offers. Let's talk retention.
Yeah.
You know, what's important, and maybe you can even have some practical examples if you can feel comfortable to share some, like what is important to some of these guys that actually says, you know what, I'm actually going to be, my future is better here than somewhere else where potentially, at least in the short term, I might make more money.
100%. It's a combination of you know, making sure that you've got very, very good people in the management side of the business to offer 6-star service and support and assist them through, you know, the non-sales aspects of the process. I think that's number one. And that's anywhere from finance to general legal to marketing to operations. The second point in that is how much are you helping that person in terms of, you know, building their profile? Are you putting them out in the marketplace? Are you putting them on listings? Are you helping them build their name? The third point is how available are you to be there for them to help them on their deals? You know, and then the fourth point is how much are you kind of allowing them to leverage you and yourself as a springboard to be able to jump very, very high in the world of, you know, their own business, and is it making a difference? And like I say, outside of that, if you are doing all of those things and they still turn around and say, well, we're going to go, or we're going to listen to this big offer of 200 grand or 300 grand, well then I've got the mindset I don't want them here anyway.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? And I always wind things back because I'm trying to attract high performers. I'm trying to actually attract no one who is the same as me, but people who are like-minded. And I wind it back to when I was working in my previous office. A competitor offered me a check for $1 million, and that was
tempting.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
26, 27 years old. Would have had some debt. Would have been not really knowing where my next paycheck was coming from. Would have been supporting 2 or 3 people, and it was kind of a lot of money. But I was focused on the loyalty of where the value of that brand is at the time. And it didn't sway me, because if you've got that mindset, you're thinking short term, and you've got to be always thinking long game in this business.
Is it fair to say that you see it as your responsibility to make these guys, like if someone's going to come and join this team, either as a junior that works through you,
They got to win.
they got to win.
They got to win.
It's your responsibility to make them more successful by being here.
I'm so invested in every single practitioner here and the success of their business. It's not even funny.
Yes.
Like they're
Do you find that's the difference maker though? Like you genuinely care that they win?
I don't know if it's the difference maker. I think it's part of it. I probably even, like, just speaking openly, would say it drives my ego in a way. And I
can grow people.
Yeah, and I think it takes a man to be able to admit that. Like if one of my guys aren't performing at a level I know they can perform at, it's like, well, what the fuck am I helping you for? Why are we wasting time? Versus if I can build a top performing agent, or have someone like Zach join 8 weeks ago and then do in a month essentially what he did the whole of his last year at his previous agency, like that makes me feel good, knowing that we can help assist people to grow. So yeah, you're probably right. I think it's a major part and differences to a lot of these guys, and how they're doing good. But make no mistake, it's their mindset, commitment and sacrifice that comes first. I'm just there to aid, support along the way. Their abilities is everything. And a lot of these guys who are in here have mindsets of champions. They're all like-minded. They all want to win. They all want to improve. So it's exciting to watch.
But to move that on to this idea of attraction, right? This idea of recruitment, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of principals watching this, or guys that are trying to grow their own team, and they're wanting to sort of say, well, when it comes to recruiting high performers, which you've also done, which is it's an art form in itself, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they joined you because of your profile, or do they think you joined you because of your ability to grow the business?
I think it's a combination. And this is just talking openly and honesty. Like, if you want to build an attraction business, you've got to create that yourself. And so we're going back to what you just said about all this extra stuff I do on the side, like the shows and the marketing, and me telling you a big piece of that was recruitment. Because it is. I think there's a...
People want to be a part of it.
100%. There's 2 pieces. We're going on a long, long drive. We're a long, long way away from our destination, and it's going to be fun. You know what I mean? So hop on board with that. But at the same time, not only is it going to be fun, and you're going to be a part of something that, when the book ends, is going to be great, you're also going to grow and learn and create something yourself at the same time. And I think it's a combination of both.
And it's this, I like that line just then, I don't even know if you meant to say it, but this idea that you're helping them paint their own picture as well, their own story. It's not just about raising your profile. You want these guys to be stars too, right?
Sure.
So when it comes to getting these others to come and join you, and I mean, no doubt, you've got a lot of people knocking on your door of all very different skill set levels. Is there an expectations meeting? What's the conversation around, this brand and culture and ensuring that they're the right fit? Because it'd be far too easy to have someone come into this business under false pretenses, right?
Yeah.
So what's that look like? Is that something that's clearly identified, or you think it's just because it's so strong within the team, it's just expected and it's just there?
No, you got to lay it out for them.
Yeah.
Black and fucking white.
Yeah.
No grey.
Yeah.
If you want to win,
this is what you got to do.
This is your team. You know what I mean? If you want to be average and you want to coast and you just want to kind of part-time the shit, you won't last here. And, I've experienced that over the last couple of years with a lot of the junior guys who have hopped in and out quickly. If you have a look at the common denominator between all of them, it's been performance, and them thinking it was going to be a lot more of a breeze than it is, because the pressure here is high. And all of my associates now who work with me, and I've got 4 of them, were hired off of that black and white conversation. And I have no interest in dealing with people who want part-time, who want grey, who want to chill. You know what I mean? And it saves people a lot of time. So, and I hate wasting time. I'd just rather have the conversation up front, be clear with parameters, and, you know, all parties win.
So if I'm a junior coming to join your team, what's the elevator pitch in terms of your expectations?
Write off your life for the next 3 to 5 years. You know what I mean? Unless you're ready to completely prioritize this, be responsive 7 days a week, early hours of the morning till 9, 10 at night, and put this first. Be ready, willing to learn. Go somewhere else.
Yep.
You know, so I need people who want to commit. That's just in my space and how I want it. At the same time, you've got to respect, you know, people's own journey. So I've got one associate, for example, who works on my team who's just had a newborn and he's married and he can't commit as much as, say, you know, one of my younger guys who has no responsibility in the world. At the same time, he still performed majorly. And that conversation just needs to be tailored to suit him, which is I appreciate and respect you've got this going on. I'm not going to micromanage you. Do what you got to do. But here's where I expect performance. And if it's not going to be delivered at that level, it will be problematic. So I appreciate and respect you've got responsibility, but this is a team on which we need to win. If you think with that responsibility you can't win, let's reconsider. And it's, like you say, an art, right? You gotta duck and weave.
So you're at this point now. You've got a good team. You know, like you've got a lot of good agents. Do you put more energy into developing people through your team now, or do you keep just as much foot on the gas on finding good agents as well?
I think when you say a lot of good agents, there's me plus 5, right? So there's 6 of us in total, and all 6 of us are great operators. I think what makes us even better is the support systems we have in and around us, because I think we've got really good support people from admin to even on a junior agent level, which is great. It's about building the fucker now, you know. So I just don't see me stopping ever, right? And what comes first? At this point, like I said, I'm pretty focused on just having a holiday and resting my mind and rebuilding and replenishing certain resources that are somewhat depleted, like my patience threshold, you know, like my temper threshold, like my, you know, all of these resources that you just give and you give and you give. But like I said, once I come back fresh and when I open the doors of Rose Bay and I keep this open, I'm coming for absolutely everything this industry has to offer and more. And, you know, I was just filled a marketing spot the other day and told this girl that we haven't even fucking started. Like we're 2 years in.
Yeah.
We're 2 years in, and you've got to have a look at the fact that we've got only 6 agents. We're 2 years in. The numbers were set to actually do this next 6 months, which will be this next financial year. And once we sign that off, you can't look at that and not be so excited by the future. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. 3 quick questions to finish up on, right? I always like to give a couple of gems to finish. So we've got a couple of, most people watching this, they're pretty early, right?
Yep.
Let's just pretend I've just gone out my own. We're just going to watch this interview, profile, brand, maybe I've got 10 grand in the bank. If you've got 10 grand to spend right now and I'm a new agent trying to get started, where would you get the best investment from your money?
I think you've got to peel it back to what I said earlier on, which is profile being the most important thing, you know, outside of the results. So I think you've got to focus on getting a couple of runs on the board. That's always step one. And then once you get a few runs on the board, how can I spend this 10 grand to promote what a phenomenal job I did for my client and how much value I added to their transaction?
So you double down on the results, not double down on the bullshit.
No.
100%.
No, it can't be. It should never be about the bullshit. I think it's always got to be results driven.
Yep.
And I think you've got to do multiple mediums. I think, you know, people talking about print being dead, that's bullshit. I don't care what market you're in, there's a place for it. There is a medium that your marketplace reads, have some action and presence in there, then get some presence online. You know, develop some relationships with reporters. You know, what I've done over the course of my career is, I used to work in London and run nightclubs, you know, before I got into real estate. And whenever a new nightclub would open, we would just focus so heavily on trying to attract celebrities to go to the event. But then the linchpin in that working was the press we could get covering
that they were there.
Them actually. So you learn little things, and like I say, what I do is learn, and so you learn little things along the way, and you understand that, geez, that really helps build hype and it builds buzz, and if people are reading about it, it must be important. So focus on all of that and just throw that 10 grand into promoting the value you can add to someone looking to sell their home.
All right, maybe a harder question. I've got $0 in the bank.
Yeah, man.
I'm wearing the only suit I've got.
Beautiful.
What do I do?
Well, I've been there, and I've had minus, not even zero in the bank. I've had minus, 100 grand in credit card debt when I first started, and owned a couple of shitty suits, but they were always clean, and they didn't look like shitty suits because I made sure they were always clean. And then it just becomes focusing on the prospecting stuff, phone calls, door knocks, handwritten cards, and end it there, just consistently over time as much as possible, giving people value, getting in front of as many people as possible, and ensuring that you miss no opportunity. And what I mean by that is, if through that prospecting process you find out or unearth that someone is going to sell, take someone in your office who knows what the fuck they're doing, take a winner, take someone who's not going to miss it, go halves with them in order to give you insurance that you're definitely going to get that opportunity, sell it, learn from that process, and use the resources you get from that campaign to get your next one.
Exactly right.
It doesn't cost $1. Hard damn work, that's it.
That's it. Mate, you're incredibly generous with your time. Love the story and the journey. And mate, you're always willing to go and share with the network. So I really appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you, brother.
Keep well.